After Harrenhal, the world changed. Every lord in Westeros saw the smoke over the god's eye. Every lord heard what happened to Harren. The greatest castle in history melted in a single night. 5 towers, twisted like candles. An entire dynasty, ash. Some looked at this and understood. Time to bend the knee. Others gripped their swords tighter. I split my forces. Rhaenys and Orys marched south to the Stormlands. Visenya flew north to the Vale, and I moved west toward the largest army Westeros had ever assembled. But first, the Stormlands. First, Argilac. Argilac Durrandon, the Storm King. The same man who cut off my envoy's hands and sent them in a box to Dragonstone. An old warrior, hard, proud beyond reason, the last of the great line of Storm Kings, a dynasty that had ruled for thousands of years. He would not kneel, not to anyone, not ever. Argilac knew I was coming, knew about Harrenhal, knew about the dragons, and still, he chose to fight. He could have locked himself inside Storm's End. The castle sits on a cliff above the sea, nearly impossible to storm. A siege could have lasted years. But Argilac did not hide behind walls. He marched out, into the open field, to meet my army. Because he was the Storm King, and Storm Kings do not hide. The battle took place beneath the walls of Storm's End. Rain, wind, thunder, as if the gods themselves came to watch. They would call this battle the Last Storm. Rhaenys flew above on Meraxes. Orys led the infantry on the ground. Argilac struck first. His knights smashed into our center, 3 charges in a row. Heavy cavalry, the finest in Westeros. They broke through our lines, cut us apart. For a moment, it looked like we were losing. Then Rhaenys turned Meraxes. Golden flame crashed down on Argilac's personal guard. Men burned. Horses screamed. The Storm King's formation collapsed. Argilac did not run. He was knocked from his horse, but he stood, sword in hand, alone, in the middle of a field covered with the dead. An old man, in mud, in blood, still fighting. Orys stepped forward, my closest friend, my brother, against the last Storm King. Orys offered him surrender. Argilac cursed him and attacked. Orys killed him in single combat, 1-on-1. The Storm King was dead. But the war was not over. Argella Durrandon, Argilac's daughter, sealed the gates of Storm's End, declared herself Storm Queen, raised the banners, the crowned stag on gold, said, "We will not surrender." Her garrison thought otherwise. They had seen what happened to their king, seen the dragons, understood they would burn next. The soldiers of Storm's End seized Argella, bound her, and brought her to the gates, handed her to Orys. Orys looked at her, took off his cloak, draped it over her shoulders, untied her bonds. Then he took her as his wife, not as a trophy, as an equal. He took the Durrandon sigil, the crowned stag, took their words, "Ours is the fury," became the first Baratheon, Lord of the Stormlands. I named him Hand of the King, the first in history. That was Orys, my brother, a man who knew how to win and how to respect the defeated. While Orys took the Stormlands, a storm was gathering in the west, a real one. 2 kings united against me. Mern, the 9th Gardener, King of the Reach, the richest kingdom in Westeros. Fertile lands, vast population, endless resources. The Gardeners had ruled for thousands of years. Loren Lannister, King of the Rock. Casterly Rock, gold, power, pride. The Lannisters believed themselves above everyone. Together they assembled an army. 55,000 men, the largest army in the history of Westeros, larger than Harren's. larger than Argilac's, larger than everything I had faced, combined. 55,000 against my 10, 5-1. On paper, this was not a war. This was an execution. We met on the plains near the Blackwater. Open field. 55,000 soldiers stood before us, the largest army Westeros had ever seen. From one edge of the horizon to the other, the ground shook beneath their boots. My army looked small next to theirs. 10,000. Most of them joined along the way. Former enemies turned allies. They looked at the horde of Gardner and Lannister, and many of them probably thought they had come to die. Mern Gardner sent his cavalry charging. Heavy horse, the finest in the world. They hit our center, broke through. My men fell. And then, for the first time in history, all 3 dragons took to the field at once. Me on Balerion, Visenya on Vhagar, Rhaenys on Meraxes. We struck the center of the enemy army, where it was thickest, where men stood shoulder to shoulder, so tight they could not turn. Black flame, green flame, golden flame. 3 streams of fire at once, from above. The field caught fire. The ground became a furnace. Men in armor cooked alive. Those who did not burn choked on smoke. The formation collapsed. 55,000 became a panicked mob. 5,000 burned. 10,000 more wounded. Mern Gardner died. With him, all his sons. Every heir. Every last one. The Gardner dynasty, thousands of years of history, ended on that field, in a single day. Loren Lannister was smarter. He saw what was happening, saw the Gardners burn. And he did what smart men do. He survived, fled the field, and then bent the knee. I let him keep Casterly Rock, named him Warden of the West, because I did not come to destroy houses. I came to unite. And to the south, to Highgarden, I sent word. The Tyrell stewards, servants of the Gardners, opened the gates and surrendered the castle. I named them Lords Paramount of the Reach, from servants to lords, in one day. News of the Field of Fire reached the north faster than any raven. Torrhen Stark, the king in the north, winter in his blood, a wolf on his banner. 30,000 Northmen, hardened, tough, used to cold and pain. Torrhen led his army south, through the neck, past the twins, to the Trident. He came to fight. His bastard brother, Brandon Snow, offered a plan. Sneak into the camp at night, kill the dragons in their sleep. 3 men with poisoned arrows. A mad plan, but Starks always had courage that bordered on madness. Torrhen listened, thought, then walked to the banks of the Trident and saw. My army stood on the other side, but it was not the army that mattered. It was what stood behind it. 3 dragons, Balerion, Vhagar, Meraxes, and behind me, what remained of 55,000. Smoke, ash, the charred banners of the Gardners. Torrhen stood on the riverbank and looked, for a long time. He could fight. 30,000 Northmen, that is a force. They would not run, they would stand to the last man, every one of them, and every one of them would burn. Torrhen sent 3 maesters across the river. Negotiations lasted 2 days. His brother Brandon Snow also crossed, alone, to see the dragons up close. They say, when he came back, he did not say a word. On the 3rd day, Torrhen Stark crossed the Trident, removed his crown, laid it at my feet, and bent the knee. His people called him Torrhen who knelt, as if it was something shameful. I call him something else. Torrhen, who saved his people. He looked at the field of fire and decided his people would not burn, that 30,000 families would get their fathers and sons back. That is not weakness, that is wisdom, the kind that comes hardest of all. I named him Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. The Starks would rule the North, as they had for thousands of years before me. Visenya took the Vale, without blood. She flew Vhagar straight to the Eyrie, an impregnable castle on top of a mountain, a place no army could reach. For 1,000 years the Arryn sat there, behind the bloody gate, untouchable. Visenya simply flew over all of it, landed in the courtyard. Shara Arryn, the Queen Regent, came out to meet her, with her young son by the hand. The boy was 6 years old, Ronal Arryn. Know what the boy did? He was not afraid. He looked at Vhagar and asked for a ride. Visenya looked at Shara. Shara looked at the dragon, at her son, at the sky, and surrendered. Visenya put the boy on Vhagar and flew him over the Vale. Ronal laughed, and his mother stood below and watched her kingdom slip away. No blood, no fire. One flight, and the Vale was mine. That left Oldtown, the largest city in Westeros, the seat of the Faith of the Seven, the citadel of the Maesters. If Oldtown said no, the Faith would rise against me. Every Septon, every Sept, every believer from Dawn to the Wall, against a foreigner with 2 sister wives. The High Septon locked himself in the starry Sept, prayed for 7 days and 7 nights, bread and water. On the 7th day, he emerged and said, the crone had shown him a vision. If Oldtown takes up arms, the city burns. Lord Hightower opened the gates. I entered Oldtown without a fight. The High Septon anointed me, crowned me, named me Aegon, first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, Lord of the 7 Kingdoms, Protector of the Realm. 6 kingdoms, in 2 years, 3 dragons, 1,500 men at the start, and an entire continent at the end. I did not rule from Oldtown, did not return to Dragonstone. I chose the place where it all began, 3 hills by the Blackwater, the Aegon Fort, a wooden fort in the mud that would one day become King's Landing. And I built a throne. I took swords, 1,000 swords, from those who surrendered, from those who fell, from those who knelt, and I piled them together, all of them. Then Balerion exhaled. Black flame melted the steel. Swords bent, flowed, twisted into each other. Blades jutting out in every direction. Sharp, dangerous. The Iron Throne. Crooked, ugly, uncomfortable. They say it cut those who sat on it. If you relaxed, a blade would bite your hand. If you leaned back, it sliced your spine. Exactly as it should be. A throne should not be comfortable. The one who rules should never forget what it cost. Every sword on that throne is someone's war, someone's death, someone's choice to surrender or to burn. I sat on that throne, cold metal, sharp edges, and I knew I would sit here until the end. 6 kingdoms under one crown. One, Dawn, never submitted, but that is another story. I united Westeros, not because I wanted power, not because I enjoyed watching people burn. I did it because one night I had a dream, and in that dream, a divided world was destroyed. I created the Kingsguard, the Small Council, the Office of Hand of the King, laws that forbade lords from warring without the crown's permission. I rode across the kingdom, every corner, with 6 maesters who taught me the customs of each region, because conquering is easy. Holding it together, that takes everything. I ruled for 37 years, and in all that time, I never forgot that dream. The darkness from the north, the army of the dead, the cold that cracks the trees. It will come. Not in my time, but it will come. And when it does, Westeros must stand as one, under one banner, under one crown. For this, I burned Harrenhal. For this, I unleashed 3 dragons on the field of fire. For this, I sit on a throne made of other men's swords. Not for power, for what is coming.